That time I got reincarnated as a true dragon by NautyManu. Chapter 98. Rage. After months of hard work, Jahil finally managed to lay an ambush on the girl and the dragon. It was during the night he and his personal squad he personally created arrived at a lake near the Elf Kingdom. Their targets, which were the girl and the dragon that could shapeshift, had set up camp near the place after they were kicked out of the city they were in earlier. Of course, it was all set up by Jahil, who ordered his men to create a scene where they would have no choice but to flee from the city. After collecting information about these two for this whole time, Jahil knew which buttons to press. For this day Jahil did many preparations. His cautious nature would not allow him to act recklessly. First, he waited for them to fall asleep before ordering his men to make a move. Then he created a barrier that restricted skills and magicules around them. Then as soon as the barrier was up he ordered his men to attack at full power. Although this may harm the targets, he didn't lack the technology to grow a limb or two. And he also used some of his skills to cast curses on them just to be safe. They were simple curses like paralysis or sleep. He didn't believe someone could react to that level of preparation, but unfortunately, he miscalculated. He didn't take into account that there would be a person who has an abnormal condition nullification skill enchanted to their clothes. As soon as the finished Milim came rushing at them, attacks with her weapon at the ready. She was like a bullet as she rushed towards her attackers with astonishing speed. And before they could even realize it, she decapitated them in a single slash. Seeing this, Jahil frowned, feeling a bit concerned. No, he wasn't concerned about his men's lives, as they were just useful pawns that he could simply discard anytime. No, the reason he was a bit concerned is that he may have underestimated the girl's fighting abilities. She didn't use any skills, but her swordsmanship is top quality, and she was able to defeat some of his men in a second. Furthermore, the dragon hasn't made a move yet. This is getting troublesome, he murmured as he ordered his remaining men to attack her at once. Seems like I have to deal with one before the other could overwhelm my men. Fighting two of them at the same time would be troublesome, he thought as he erased his presence. So while his men were keeping the brat busy, he sneaked behind the dragon to deliver a finishing blow. But he once again miscalculated. The dragon had the anti-skill, so his normal attacks failed to hurt him. Cursing again, Jahil engaged in battle with the dragon, who turned out to be a martial arts genius. Thankfully the dragon is too young and has not enough experience, so Jahil was able to incapacitate him after a while. The young beast relied too heavily on his anti-skill, so after losing its protection, the dragon was instantly overwhelmed. After that, Jahil observed the situation with his men. He found out that the brat was almost done with his men. And unlike the dragon, this brat had experience with the sword. After comparing the pros and cons, Jahil decided to escape for now. He simply doesn't have the confidence to defeat the pink-haired brat without sustaining any serious injuries, so he did the thing anyone at his place would do. He grabbed the dragon brat and teleported away. And of course, launched a sneak attack on her before teleporting away. If his attack was successful, his men would bring that brat to him, and if that wasn't successful, well, tough luck, he would just have to try again another time. Maybe he could send his new test subject after her after he is done with him. That would certainly be interesting, Jahil thought with a cold smirk. As for her coming after him, that would be even better. Not only could he use the numerous soldiers to wear her down, he would even be able to test out his new weapons he specially made for the incoming wars that he would lead. Get out of my way, Milim screamed as she swung her sword. Her sword managed to decapitate another soldier, but despite that, others rushed towards her without caring for their comrade's life or death. Tisk, I need to deal with these guys quickly. Gia needs my help, Milim thought as she used every one of her special techniques to quickly deal with these mobs. Although the barrier restricts her skills and magicules, it doesn't hinder her too much. For magicules, her intrinsic skill helped her bypass the limitation. As for skills, well, she has no unique or ultimate skills yet, so that too is useless. The only reason she is struggling is because she lacks the experience to deal with this many enemies at once. These guys don't even let a little breather for her to cast a spell. Just as Milim was complaining, she suddenly felt danger behind her. So without any hesitation, she kicked the ground so hard that cracks appeared, and jumped. Rimuru always told her to believe in her instincts, as it would never be wrong. And that happened to be the correct decision, as not long before Milim jumped into the air, a black magic attack hit the place she was before. The attack was so destructive that it made a crater in the ground. Even the soldiers were affected by the attack. Almost half of them died or got seriously injured. Damn, that bastard got away with Gia. Milim cursed as she saw Velgaya and the bastard missing. And just when Milim was about to try and follow them, the remaining soldiers once again attacked her. Damn it all. Leave me alone, you bastards. Milim roared as she tried her best to push them back. But no matter what, these stubborn soldiers wouldn't let her get away. Erg! Milim growled as she felt her vision getting red. She was angry. She wants to rescue her friend, but these bastards seem to be hell-bent on stopping her. Due to her unstable emotions, her magicules began to run rampant. Her aura was so strong that the barrier began to crack due to not being able to handle the pressure. Milim's attacks began to grow stronger and wilder. She was like a berserker who had finally been let loose from her cage. Her speed and reflexes began to grow at an astonishing speed. After a few minutes, Milim finally stopped swinging her sword and pushed onto the ground. She was utterly exhausted. She panted as she lay on top of a mountain of corpses. These corpses belonged to the elf soldiers who tried their best to defeat her. Just as Milim was trying to regain her strength, she heard a voice that was cold and indifferent. Notice individual has gained the unique skill Wrath. Chapter 99. What happened at the same time? Milim gained her first unique skill. Rimuru and Seal, who were sleeping on there, suddenly jolted awake. They just felt the protections they left on Velgaya, and Milim reacted. Seal, locate Milim and Velgaya immediately, Rimuru said as she jumped out of the bed, and just as her feet touched the ground, her pajamas turned to black smoke and in the next second changed to her combat outfit. Her outfit consists of a sleeveless black tunic that reaches down to her thighs, featuring a high collar and a somewhat loose fit. She wears black arm guards that cover her forearms and extend to her elbows, complemented by golden shoulder guards that add a touch of armor and flair to her look. A white belt cinches the tunic at her waist, providing a striking contrast to the dark fabric. She pairs this with fitted black trousers tucked into knee-high black boots, creating a practical yet stylish ensemble. The overall design blends traditional and modern elements, with the golden shoulder guards and the white belt adding visual interest and breaking up the monotony of the black fabric. Seal nodded and immediately turned to black smoke and entered Rimuru's body. And in a span of less than a second, she scanned the whole cardinal world and located both Milim and Velgaya. Master, it seems Velgia has been captured, as he is currently in the Kingdom of Elves while Milim is at a place near the border of the kingdom. Seal said as she analyzed everything. Is his life in any danger? Rimuru asked with furrowed brows. You know Velgia isn't actually weak. And for someone to detain him, this person must be very powerful. Negative, his life signs are stable. It's just that he is currently unconscious, so I can't connect to him, Seal said with a frown. This is a situation they didn't take into account. She and Rimuru would monitor Milim and Velgia every day to make sure they didn't do something too crazy. But they will stop their observation every time they fell asleep. Since she and Rimuru knew they couldn't really protect those two every day, so gradually they stopped monitoring them every day. But it seems they were too hasty in their judgment. They thought with the skills Rimuru and Veldora had taught them they could fight and at the very least escape safely. Well, they were wrong in their judgment. In the original story, Velgaya didn't even manage to protect Milim, as she and him were captured by Jahil without any difficulty. His plan only failed because Milim at the last minute awakened her ultimate skill and went berserk. Here though, not only did Jahil barely manage to capture Velgia, he even lost his elite troops. And furthermore, he himself knew that he couldn't capture Milim. Master, I recommend going to see Milim first. Her emotional state is very unstable. If not handled correctly, she may lose her sanity like she did in the past. Seal advised as she looked at Rimuru. Rimuru clenched her fists hard before slowly calming down. She then nodded to Ciel's suggestion and opened a space rift to where she felt Milim was. She knew she needed to have a calm mind to assess the situation calmly. Coming out of the other side of the portal, she saw Milim laying on top of a small mountain of corpses. Her eyes were barely conscious. Rimuru wasted no time as she rushed towards her and applied a healing spell potion on her. The potion managed to restore some of her exhausted mental energy. She looked at Rimuru and said in a broken voice, Auntie Rimuru, they took Velgaya away, please help him. Don't worry Milim, we will go get him back. For now, let's just wait for the healing potion to work. I'm sure you want to take revenge on them by yourself, Rimuru said as she tried to calm Milim down. The healing potion needs to take a few seconds to completely take effect. This is especially for magic-borns who have a great resistance to magical attacks, and Milim's magical resistances are quite high. After a while, Milim got up. Although she is still agitated over not being able to help Velgia, for the most part she recovered her mental energy. Forcing her mind to calm down, Milim looked at Rimuru with hopeful eyes. If her aunt makes a move, they could rescue Velgia in a matter of minutes. Once they find Velgia and rescue him, Milim vows to break the bones of that bastard 100 times as revenge for attacking them. Okay Milim, now since you have calmed down a little, explain to me the situation clearly. What happened and why was Velgia kidnapped? Rimuru asked as she looked at Milim seriously. You don't kidnap people without a cause, especially if they decided to mobilize such a force, Rimuru thought as she looked at fallen soldiers. At one glance she could tell they are highly trained professionals. No run-in-a-mile bandit could have such a force. And from what Seal has found so far, the perpetrator is from the Elf Kingdom. Why would the Elf Kingdom want to attack Milim and Velgia? Rimuru thought with a frown. And what is the feeling of I'm forgetting something important? Although Rimuru has a perfect memory after living for millions of years, she would forget some useless knowledge. So unless she tries very hard she wouldn't remember it. And this isn't actually the best time to reminisce about her past. Earlier today me and Velgia were kicked out of the city, so we had no choice but to camp outside. And when it was close to midnight we were attacked by these guys. At first both of us didn't think too much about them, as we figured they were some bandits who wanted to make some quick money. So just as I was about to cast a spell to knock them all away, a barrier suddenly appeared and blocked me from using any magic. So I had no choice but to use physical attacks. And just when Velgia was about to join the fight, a man who was much stronger than the others suddenly appeared and attacked Velgia. Fortunately, Velgia had his anti-skill that allowed him to nullify the attack. Since that man took the initiative to attack, Velgia too counterattacked. At first, I thought with Velgia's anti-skill he could beat that man who seems to be a mage with ease. But the fight didn't last a few minutes as Velgia was defeated by that man. And when I wanted to help Velgia it was too late. That man launched an attack at me and used it as a cover to teleport away with Velgia. And I couldn't go after them as these guys kept coming at me even after I killed more than half of them, Milim said as she narrated the whole situation. Rimuru frowned as she heard Milim's explanation. Unlike Milim, who had no idea, Rimuru could see the bigger picture. The reason why Milim and Velgia were kicked out was because the mastermind wanted them out of the city to launch his attack. And for this mission, he took a squad of Death Knights who would fight even if their comrades were killed. That is to say, he wanted to either kill or capture the other party, and judging from the way things went their objective was Velgia, as he was quickly dealt with. Seal, find out what happened here, Rimuru said as she commanded Seal to do what she is best at. Chapter 100. What the hell happened here? Analyzing. Processing information. Information processed. Master, I have found 3 possible outcomes, Seal said after she scanned the whole battlefield. Tell me what we have, Seal, Rimuru said as she waited for her explanation. Master, according to my calculations the one responsible for this attack is Jahil. According to what I have found, the people here are an elite assassin squad that is directly under his control. And in the Elf Kingdom, there is only Jahil who has enough skill to bypass Velgia's anti-skill. If I have to guess, the probability of him doing this attack is to capture both Milim and Velgia. But he had miscalculated, as Milim and Velgia were too strong for him to deal with alone. So he had withdrawn after capturing Velgia, Seal said as she presented her guess. Jahil, you mean the crazy clown guy that was such a pain in the ass that was killed by Guy a long time ago? I thought Guy destroyed his soul when he went on that massacre, Rimuru asked in doubt. Yes, Master, he is the same person. And Master, don't you remember him appearing in the future again after possessing the body of Footman? Seal asked in exasperation. I remember that guy. I kept remembering about him since he was killed by Diablo after he spoke some nonsense about being the supreme ruler or something, Rimuru said as she remembered the high human clown who doesn't know how to face reality. Yes, it's that guy. From the data I got he seemed to have possessed the body of the current Elf King, Seal said with a sigh. Well then let's just go there and kill him and bring Velgia back then, Rimuru said as she cracked her neck. Milim, get ready, we are going to bring Velgia back, Rimuru said as she looked at Milim. Milim nodded as her eyes lit up with determination. She was going to make them pay and rescue her best friend at any cost. Unsheathing her blade, Rimuru slashed the space in front of her. The space was split open without any resistance. While walking into the space rift, Rimuru asserted, "Honestly, can't these villains stay away from my family? Every time they make me angry, only innocents would be affected by my wrath." Appearing on the other side, Rimuru was met with a futuristic city that is in flames. And furthermore, there is a dark miasma covering the whole kingdom. If one wouldn't know better, they would think the end of the world is coming. What the hell happened here? Rimuru asked in shock. A few minutes earlier, after Jahil successfully managed to come back to his kingdom with the captured Velgaya, he went straight to his lab. He couldn't wait to do all the experiments on Velgaya so he could have his own death dragon. But on his way, he saw his son coming towards him. "Ah, perfect timing, come with me to lab number 22, we have some new material for our new experiment," Jahil said as he looked at Kazalim with a wide smile. Normally he wouldn't allow anyone into his laboratory since they would just be a hindrance, but since he was in such a good mood he allowed Kazalim to join him. But the next moment he had to dodge to the side as Kazalim fired a curse spell at him. "What are you doing, Kazalim?" Jahil asked enraged. "Doing something I should have done years ago," Kazalim said as she swung her staff again and fired numerous curse magic spares at Jahil. "How dare you!" Jahil roared as he countered the spell with his own magic. Then he tried to activate the curse that he placed on Kazalim's soul. It was then he realized it. His curse mark has been removed. "You? How the hell did you remove my curse mark?" Jahil asked in shock. "It wasn't that hard, I just had to expel all the curse energy I had in my body," Kazalim said like it was no big deal. "You lunatic," Jahil said as he looked at Kazali with surprise. Expelling all the curse energy in one's body would bring a deathman like Kazalim to the brink of death. "Well, if I could finally stop your madness, then being a lunatic is a small price," Kazalim said as he started to attack. Jahil also stopped talking as he too fought with Kazalim. Although he is far more experienced in curse magic, his earlier battle with Velgaya and Milim exhausted most of his magicules. So it didn't take long before Kazalim managed to deliver a decisive blow. "Damn you, Kazalim, I will make you pay," Jahil said as he activated a smoke bomb and teleported away from this place. "I won't let you escape," Kazalim roared as he fired a curse bullet at Jahil to stop him from escaping. "Ah!" Jahil screamed as his arm and almost half of his body were separated from his body. "Kazalim, I will get my revenge." That was all Jahil could say before he was teleported away. "Tisk, this would be troublesome now that he had escaped," Kazalim said as he clicked his tongue in annoyance. "I better go see Lady Sylvia and report this. At least that way I can rest assured that my father wouldn't bring disaster to this kingdom anymore," Kazalim said as he walked in a specific direction. On her way, she couldn't help but wonder, strange, am I forgetting something? After Kazalim left, the ground began to crack. From the crack, Velgia came out. He looked at his surroundings and after sensing no one he breathed a sigh of relief. Sigh that was close. Thank goodness those guys fought each other. Earlier when Jahil and Kazalim were fighting, Velgaya woke up due to the commotion, and as soon as he saw Jahil being occupied he broke free from his restraints. Although he lost to Jahil earlier, Velgia wasn't what you could call weak. He just lacked the experience of dealing with cunning opponents. And with the use of his anti-skill, he was able to break free from the restraints Jahil placed on him. After that, Velgaya used his powers to dive under the ground to hide himself. He didn't want to gamble whether he could defeat any of them after their fight ended. And it was only after he felt no one was there did he come out of the ground. "First I need to contact Milim," Velgaya thought as he rummaged through his storage space, and from it he took out a ring. This ring is something Rimuru made for all of the true dragon family. Although it was made based on the Demon Lord's ring that Guy would give in the future, Seal modified it so it could contact anyone privately and not work like a group chat. But before he could contact Milim, the whole palace shook. He almost stumbled down due to this. "What the hell is happening in this place?" he said as stood up.